intros are always the best, and I'm very excited but also very sad. Of course, this is the last of the 3 races for this F1 eSports qualifying on Apex Online Racing, but really excited about Suzuka. It's a driver's circuit, it's a spectator's circuit. Everyone loves Suzuka. It's just such a great track. It's the only figure of 8 circuit. The S section is just truly great. The 130R as well, high-speed corners, really technical stuff, and I assume we're in for a great race.
Absolutely. It's one of these circuits that has seen championships crowned, championships lost. It's a real test of so many aspects of a driver's skill. The S-curves, get one element wrong and you lose a bucket load of time. The Degners, one small mistake going in there too quick and you'll lose a ton of time trying to unbury yourself from the gravel traps. 130R. I mean, there's so many potential errors that a driver can make. They really have got to be on top of their game. Of course, we run 50% races, but even still, the pressure that's on our drivers, and of course, with what's at stake for our championship here, really does pile on the pressure. We really will see how well our drivers do in those conditions.
Yep, and it is, well, at the top, it is Graham Carroll, as everybody is seeing the top 5 on your screen right now. And it is Graham Carroll with a first and second place in the races so far that commands a 13-point lead over Ali Pakala, with Wycombs just behind in 29th position. So it is going to take something really special in order to kick Graham Carroll out of the semifinals in London. In fact, I believe it would take Ram, Wycombs, and Ali Pakala all being on the podium in that order as well too, with Ramdrop picking up the win in order for him to be kicked out. But so it's looking really good for him, no doubt about it. He's in a good spot for this race, but and I believe if he picks up even an 8th position, even 8th would secure his spot in the semifinals, if I'm not mistaken.
It's a pretty comfortable position to be in, and being in the Mercedes is rather poignant then that he's dominating the way he is. Ollie Pakula and Wycombs have a very, very close battle, not only between themselves, but against the likes of Ram and Cam behind them. Yes, quite a number of drivers. If Ollie and Wycombs run into trouble, their position is in a lot of jeopardy depending on how those below them do. So Graham really is the only one that very almost doesn't need to bother turning up. Quite frankly, his position is that secure.
Yep. Yeah, without question. He's definitely in a good spot heading into this. He's probably going to be going to London, I think, which is a short trip from him, with him being from the UK, of course. So it's less of a trek for him than it might be for some of the other people. But Wycombs, the winner of the opening round of this 3-race championship, already out on circuit and clearly itching to put in a lap time here.
Indeed, one of the first ones out. Now, I've just been given a heads up. Whether this is entirely correct, I'm not entirely certain. Of course, one thing we can't see in the commentary box is the weather forecast. However, I've just received word from one of the drivers, which I'm not going to say who's let the cat out of the bag. We're in for a full wet race.
Oh, good. I think PC has been the only platform where we haven't seen any sort of precipitation throughout these races. So I'm very glad to hear that. Oh, we've already got some side-by-side.
Yeah.
With Klawitsky overtaking Wycombs. He's even more eager to set a lap time, it would seem. But yeah, that's going to be very interesting to see how that plays out. So if it's going to be a full wet race, that changes obviously the strategy that these drivers have completely prepared for. You know, they would have prepared for a dry race, maybe some wet weather testing, of course, for sure. Maybe they would have even done some laps on the wet tires to see how long they will last, or check the crossover point from intermediates to wets and intermediates to slicks and that sort of thing. But yeah, we're well underway in qualifying now. Drivers are starting their hot laps. We're on board with Wycombs, the winner in China, of course, in that McLaren after that incredible last lap overtake. And, you know, Chris, is not really a circuit that promotes overtaking. I mean, turn 1 is probably the best place, and that's a high-speed double right-hander where you're braking and turning all at the same time. Very technical stuff, of course, as Wycombs going a bit wide there through the S's. I think his line may have been a bit compromised through there. But yeah, it's a difficult circuit to overtake, and the rain on circuit would certainly just make things that much more difficult.
Absolutely. It's of course the drivers won't know leading up to this event what weather conditions that they're going to face, and some people may have put practice in wet conditions or in full wet conditions. Others may have just gone for the dry practice. Suzuka, obviously a track very common in the F1 series and in many racing games. So as a track itself, people will know. But again, the handling characteristics of these cars at the setups that these drivers want to use could well influence how well their car does. I've just had a confirmation again by a second driver that it's a full wet race. So we could be in for a very interesting time as the first times are coming onto the board. Klavotsky is first on the board. I can't actually see what his time is. Wycombe's just coming through the casino triangle. But coming back to what you're saying about the overtaking element, it's very true. There's very few places in normal dry conditions. Well, there we go. That answers where our poll currently sits, 128 for Wycombe's. If you hairpin, possibly. If you get a decent run, especially if someone's made a mistake in the Deckner curves, they could have a crack at them at turn 11, the hairpin. Spoon, not really, a little bit too quick generally there. But again, if with the wet weather, it's likely to catch a few drivers off, or a back marker may well get a leader slightly out of step. So there's so many ifs and buts and maybes that weather, assuming the weather does stay full wet all race long, or if it changes, then we're going to throw even more spanner in the works. I was looking forward to start with, but now I'm really looking forward to this.
Yeah, this should be a good one. As I'm watching Graham Carroll stay to the right-hand side as he crosses the line to put in a 127. Goes quickest of all out of everybody, but no surprise there from the current championship leader. Let's see if we can take a look at some of the people that will be challenging him. Let's go on board with Ollie Pakula. Never mind, he's in the garage, so Ollie currently looking to maybe make some changes to his setup, put on a fresh set of tires, something like that. And of course, with the wet weather for tires, they can use them to their heart's content.
Absolutely. So everyone is just going to be going absolutely full throttle. No, exactly as you say, that there's no element of I've got to save these. So the true pace we're seeing here it's really how the drivers stack in dry conditions. I mean, we have a bit of an indication of that on how the season's gone. But again, it all comes down to how much practice these drivers have put in those wet conditions. It could be that the setup they've got for the dry really does not work in the wet. The setups are, traditionally very, very different. But we'll see how well it works for them.
And I've just gone from one Force India to the... Fizzy is coming to the end of his lap. He's off the circuit. Acts his way through the final corner, feeds the car over to the right-hand side, opens up that DRS, and crosses the line. No idea what... but there is just over 5.5 minutes remaining in this final qualifying session of this F1 eSports qualifier, and Fizzy's in a better position than he was heading into Bahrain. He had quite a late race charge at the end, tail end of that Bahrain Grand Prix, putting on a set of the Super Softs and making lots of overtakes for a solid result, much better result than he got in China. So I'm sure he's very excited about a repeat performance of Bahrain rather than China as he makes his way through those two Degners, and he's going to get out of the way for somebody that's going through, and that is Failer, who is one of the drivers that does not have a chance of moving on. But of course, massive respect to all of the guys who, even if they aren't mathematically within a chance of moving on to the semifinals, they are at least turning up and they're going to put on a show for us. So of course, that is very much appreciated.
Absolutely. So there are several drivers that are outside of the possibility. Marco Westy, Klavotsky, Nick Mido, Enzo Benito. I mean, I don't think anybody saw that one coming from the Redline team. The fact that Enzo would be, the fact that we don't know what prevented him from taking part in the first race. He disconnected right at the beginning of the second, so we really haven't seen what our pole sitter from last week, or he would have been on pole had he have been allowed to race in the first place. But sadly, he's out of the running. Johnny John Failer and Jem Bullock Bassi again. Didn't expect to be seeing him out of the essentially in the drop zone. So yeah, that was a big surprise as well. But that's the nature of the beast. You may be very, very good, but it's an element of luck, of course. But consistency is always going to pay off. Hence why a second and a first has seen Graham Carroll on that top spot at the moment. So everyone from 11th upwards, as you mentioned earlier, from the championship standings. So that's Max AFC, Fizzy, Kalon, Michael X99, Riker Gordon, RBK, Cam and Ram. I love saying those two names together. Wycombs, Oslo, and Graham Carroll, of course, are still in the running. Really, so Ram down to Max are mathematically possible, but does rely on a lot of luck, or a lot of bad luck on those ahead of them. So, but you never know. The rain could do it.
Exactly. Yeah, because of that precipitation, those types of permutations, those are certainly possible. It can certainly happen without a doubt. I'm actually on board with Olli Pakala right now as he makes his way through the Degners and on his way towards that turn 11 hairpin. And he is one of the ones to watch for sure. He's one of those ones that needs to have some bad luck in order for somebody else to move up, as he's currently sat second in the standings with 30 points after picking up a fourth place finish in China off the podium. He was a little bit disappointed by that one, but then coming home in second position in Bahrain for a total of 30 points in the championship right now. And in fact, let me go ahead and bring up the full standings for you guys. I apologize. It's going to pause the game every time I do that as he heads on down towards 130 hours. So there you can see the full top 10. As we saw in the beginning, it is Graham, Olli Pakala, Wycombs, Ram, and Cam is the top 5. But then you've got RBK in 6th position with 15 points, same as Cam, but he has not picked up a podium, where Cam did pick up a podium, of course, as Olli Pakala comes to the end of his lap now. Rico Gordon just behind there. So, yeah, I mean, really, Ram is the one with the best chance, obviously, of displacing any of those guys in the top 3. But for people like Michael X99, Kalon, and Fizzy, it's going to take something really special in order for them to move up. Because, of course, picking up a win is 25 points. They've got 8 points each. That would put them on 33, which would put them ahead of Olli Pakala and Wycombs. But they would need Olli and Wycombs to not really score very many points at all if they were to win the race. And winning the race is hard enough as it is.
It would pretty much need the top 3 to just detonate, essentially. Again, I'm not meaning that in a disrespectful sense to those that are a little bit further down the board. It's just the way that the points have fallen, especially in such a short season where, you know, in a longer season you may think, okay, that was a bad race, I've got time enough to make this back. You don't have that in a three-race season. You've got to be straight out of the, you know, straight on the ball, straight on the beat. So it's one of those things that, you know, but if someone has a mistake or you know, suffers damage, it has such a major knock-on effect because the season's that much shorter. Graham Carroll is still our pole sitter, and Nick Mido on my screen is actually second. So again, I'm going to try and bring up the timings at the moment. No, I can't do that. Few invalidated laps, so people finding the grip limit. Michael X99, Rico Gordon, and Westy having invalidated laps. Michael actually doing that twice. Max AFC and Kalon got himself a warning. So yeah, people finding where the adhesion is and a little bit more. As Graham Carroll again sits the fastest up with a 127.4. Yep,
goes even quicker, just making the job of those other people that little much harder. Let's take a quick look at the rest of the standings here, so you can see the bottom half of the top 20. So again, mathematically, Max AFC 46 does have a chance to get in, but he is going to need Olli Pakala and Wycombs to not score any points whatsoever. As the checker flag is out, drivers will of course be able to finish the laps that they are on, but it looks like that's going to be the end of the day for Wycombs. I believe he just finished a hot lap, if I'm not mistaken.
I think he just started a hot lap. I was actually watching him as the flag fell. I think he just made it. Whether the Force India behind him did is debatable. But I think Wycombs, and he's absolutely hammering it. So it would indicate that if he's not on a qualifying lap, he is giving it his all for race practice here as he's heading up to the hairpin. Fizzy's retired, so that's not the Force India that's behind him. That must be the other Force India is Ram. So Ramdrop is doing his best to keep up with Wycombs as Wycombs' fuel lights just come on. So he's absolutely flying. I'm staying with him, currently third, 7 tenths down from our leader Graham Carroll. It would be interesting to see if Wycombs can take that top spot. It's been Graham Carroll and Enzo, I believe. I think Graham had pole in the first race. It was several weeks, 2 weeks ago. I've slept since then.
Yeah, I do believe it was Graham that took pole position, although he wasn't leading at the end of the first lap.
No.
And it's unfortunate that Jem's not here, because he would have been one of those people that really could have upsetted the front row, because he's had those incredible starts so far in this race.
2/10 off Wycombs finishes from the top. So it is, again, very, very close. And we're just waiting, actually, for Graham to retire from the session, and then the official qualifying results will be confirmed. Yeah, just 2/10 separates the top two. And again, what we saw in both of the preceding rounds is the most of the field was separated by less than a second. So whilst we have, I mean, particularly last race, I mean, Graham Carroll just ran off into the distance, and that was the last we saw of him until the checkered flag fell. But we really didn't see that in China. We saw such a great big collection of drivers in very, very close proximity, made for some excellent racing. And if the weather is as bad as they say it's going to be, this ought to be fun.
Yeah, I'm very excited for the rain. Again, I believe we're the only platform that hasn't seen any sort of precipitation yet in these races.
We are overdue.
Racing gods have smiled upon us.
We are overdue then. So, yeah, we're just waiting for... So either Graham will retire, or in 30 seconds it will be retired for him, and we will then get the qualifying positions confirmed for you. So, like we say, Graham really just needs to score 8th or above to absolutely confirm his position in that semi-final, but it is all to play for the rest of them. So Ollie and Wycombs will be, well, I think everybody will be working quite hard to try and solidify their positions, and also hoping that the weather will be catching out those ahead of them. And here we go then. So your pole man for this race, Graham Carroll in the Mercedes, by 2/10 is Wycombs. And just look how close Wycombs and Oslo are, just 12 thousandths of a second separating those two. Johnny John 4, great effort for him. Ryko Gordon 5, Ramdrop 6, Glavuxi 7, Kalon 8, Fela 9, and Nick Mindo round out your top 10. Well, it's such a surprising difference in me talking about how close the grid's been. The gap between second and third is 7/10. That's the biggest gap we've seen all season long so far.
Yeah, that is massive. Johnny John, though, with starting from the second row of the grid, that's fantastic for the Renault driver. Ryko Gordon, again, within a shot of getting into the semifinals if he has a fantastic result here today. And Ramdrop starting from the third row of the grid as well. Then Klawitsky and Kalon, and Failer and Nick Mido rounding out the top 10. Fizzy starting from 12th position. He's got to be disappointed about that one, I have no doubt in my mind, as we are preparing to go racing. And if memory serves, it goes pretty quickly. It goes from loading to lights are coming on pretty quickly here, so I will pass it over to you.
It has done. It's nearly caught us out a few times. And, yep, the rain is chucking it down. I love the fact that some of the marshals are stood in there in T-shirts. Yeah, like you would if the weather was this bad.
They just can't be bothered. They're fine. These are waterproof marshals, upgraded for 2017.
They spent their development points on waterproof. Yeah.
That's right.
So then
we're countdown's going down now, so we're about to start this race.
And there's a few people taking their time to load in, or maybe just keeping us holding on. But
we're savoring it, savoring.
Here we go then. 4 lights, 5 lights, wind them up and let them go! Slightly behind me then, so Graham Carroll getting a decent start away from the line. He's going across to try and block Wycombs off Oslo. He's then moving alongside the McLaren, trying to take that second position around the outside of the first turn. Does he hang on to it? He does! Oslo has taken that for second position away from the McLaren. Great move, very brave. Ramdrop hanging on to fourth in the Force India. Whoa, that's Klawitsky. It's gone very deep, and Klawitsky has actually lost positions. His fuel light's already on my screen, so he was running in rich mix, which is quite brave in the wet already. He's down to 7th, so that's promoted Kalon and Johnny John. Johnny John not hanging on to his original qualifying position. He's lost a couple as well. Who else have we got? Ryko Gordon 8, Nick Mido 9, and it is Max AFC rounding out the top 10 at the moment.
Yeah, pretty clean. It's hard to see any sort of incidents that may have happened, though. A lot of spray kicking up as they're on the extreme wet tires for this very, very wet start here from Suzuka. And already the top two starting to break away. It does seem that Wycombs is struggling in these conditions. He's got the Force India of, I believe that's Ram dropped directly behind him. Yeah, he's all over the back of him, and Wycomb's starting to lose touch with the Mercedes and Ferrari up ahead, as once again, art imitating life, as the Mercedes and Ferrari breaking away on the rundown towards 130R, and Wycomb's, I think, is going to have to be more concerned about that pink Force India behind him rather than the two cars that are pulling away from him.
Absolutely, but we saw this in China where Wycombs was actually 6th at the end of the first lap and really not making a great deal of inroads up until the first pit stop, and then, well, we all know what happened thereafter. He just came alive and stole the win from Graham Carroll in the last then. Wycombs looks like he went to take a much narrower line through that final chicane. Ramdrop really keeping that pressure on, but it's early days yet. Let's not be making too many silly moves. Oh, that got very close between the Force India and the McLaren leading up to the first turn. But all good so far. But Ramdrop is keeping that pressure very, very high on that McLaren at the moment. Kalon is in 5th position. Johnny Johnson, the two Renaults, 5th and 6th at the moment. Ryko Gordon still hanging on to 7th. He's got Nick Mido right behind him. So the two Red Bulls are 7th and 8th, and with Klavutsky and
Nick Mido makes the move up the inside on Ryko Gordon.
Wow,
that 7th position at the Dunlop curve. Wow, I don't know if Ryko was letting him through. That would be very strange. But Nick Mido moves up into 7th. Oh, and Klavutsky actually gets the second Degner a little bit wrong there, but it's not going to lose him any positions. Who's that directly behind him? That is Max AFC.
Max. Yeah, so the two Saubers, two Red Bulls, and the two Renaults are together at the moment. Oh, that's Max AFC getting a little bit sideways on his teammate there at that particular point as well. Just going to jump back up to see how our leaders are doing. Graham he's still got Ollie for company, and they have got themselves a little bit of comfort from the McLaren, but it's not a great deal. It's 2.2 seconds. It is increasing, but it's not increasing very quickly. So actually Wycomb's gained a couple of seconds at that last check, and he's beginning actually to break away. Maybe Ramdrop made a bit of a mistake through the spoon through 130R.
A bit of an incident at 130R. Michael X99 trying to go side by side with Marco FD around the outside at 130R in these absolutely horrible conditions, and it did not work out for him. He ended up on the grass and then lost the position to Failer as well. He's now down into 13th position is the Ferrari, and spinning up those rear tires as he tries to make his way through. And actually Failer now putting the moves on Marco FD up the inside. Slight contact between the two of them, but it looks like the McLaren's going to have to hold off, of course, as they enter into the S section.
Absolutely, Marco doing his best to keep that charging McLaren at bay. I mean, how often do you see a Mercedes defending from a McLaren, let's be frank? So, there's Max AFC in 9th position then, still with Klavutsky. So, a lot of movement throughout the field, but again, only...
Oh, wait, Klavutsky's off. Oh, no, the Q commentator cursed.
Oh, no.
As soon as you mention his name, he's down to 12th position now. That is really unfortunate for Klavutsky.
I think it was Klavutsky. I saw talking about commentator curse through that Casio triangle. There's 60, 17, 18 at the end of the lap. I think he got that one a little bit wrong on the last lap and ended up jumping across it. So Klavutsky is struggling in these conditions. Then he's got Westy right with him, and Michael X99 in front. So jumping up to our top 4, Roundup is staying in touch with Wycombs, but again, there's a little bit of a gap forming there, 9/10 of a second, and Wycombs is keeping that gap. It's sort of bouncing between 2 and 2.3 seconds at the moment, so the McLaren is doing well to hang on to the two ahead of him. Oslo is half a second now. I mean, DRS is of course disabled in these conditions, so that is irrelevant as far as that's concerned. And Oslo then, Ali Pakolek getting that fastest lap from Graham Carroll, so it is definitely on between certainly our top 2, but I think if a mistake happens, Wycombs is in a prime position to capitalise on that, but you can't take it away from Ramdrop. He's right there as well. If something were to happen, he could capitalise well, and it will do him pretty good as far as the championship is concerned if the top 3 come to grief. He's 4th in the championship, 4th in the race. He's put himself in the best possible position to capitalise on a mistake or an incident of the top three.
Yeah, Kalon in 5th position just looks so lonely out there. He's got a big gap to the front and a big gap behind. But boring races from a driver's standpoint are not necessarily unwelcomed, as that will mean less incidents or less potential incidents for the Renault driver. But yeah, the top 4 in the championship are also the top 4 in this race, which means obviously if things were to finish as they are now, then we would see Graham Carroll, Ollie Pakala, and Wycombs, aka the other Chris, heading into the semifinals in London. But of course, Ramdrop is going to be looking to change that. As you mentioned earlier, he is in the pound seat for that. Oh, as Kalon goes very wide at the entrance to Spoon, that's really going to hinder him, especially because of the long straight after Spoon on the run down towards 130R. That's definitely going to lose him some time to Nick Mido behind, who seems to be having a much better race this time out compared to China and Bahrain. He's already in 6th position. He's got a big gap to the next car behind as well, too, which is Johnny John in the... or no, I'm sorry. And it's actually Max AFC holding on to 7th position. Oh, and that's a... Nope, okay. I definitely saw Ferrari in the air there. I believe Michael X99. Yes, he is side by side with, I believe that's Failer. Oh gosh, they appear to be stuck together. I'm not entirely sure what's going on there.
Yeah, when I jumped to them on my screen, the Ferrari was literally on the back of the McLaren. It was literally one being wheelbarrowed by the other. I think that's a bit of a lag issue. They are kind of locked together there. So, I mean, the McLaren doesn't appear to be deviating from the fact that the Ferrari is... we've lost Marco.
Oh,
that is a shame. He was having a great race. So yeah, I think there's a bit of a lag problem or a sync problem there between the McLaren and the Ferrari. So that's going to be a little bit unusual.
I'm on board with Ollie Pakala actually, because I think that's the battle to watch at the moment. He really is not making huge inroads on Graham Carroll, our current championship leader, but at the same time, he's really not falling away either. So these could be conditions that are more suitable to Ollie Pakala potentially as they make their way through Spoon. Nice line through there, misses his apex ever so slightly. The back end just trying to step out as he comes onto the curbing and onto the straight on the run down towards 130R. And there goes Marco FD out of the session. An unfortunate result for Marco. Certainly this championship is in no way representative of that man's driving skills. You and I personally know just how quick Marco is and the potential that he has, but it just really has not gone his way in this F1 eSports event with Apex Online Racing, as Graham Carroll now sets the fastest lap of the race. And really, it's Graham and Ollie that are trading fastest laps, and it seems that Graham actually has pulled away a little bit in that most recent lap, pulls away a little bit from the Ferrari, 1.3 seconds currently separating them. But of course, no DRS in these kinds of conditions.
No, very true. I did wonder, actually, a lap or two ago, whether the conditions were, believe it or not, getting worse. But I don't think that's actually the case. I think they're pretty much maintaining their atrociousness at the current level. Wycombs did actually grab the fastest lap last time around, so he's in the trade-off in that fastest lap mixture as well. But also the drivers seem to be taking different lines, which I find a little bit unusual. You'd think in conditions like this, they're not having to find the water to keep the tyres cool. You would think that they would essentially mule train and just follow the driest line. But I'm saying Wycombs seems to be taking a different line, particularly to Ollie Pakala that I'm looking at the moment. It looks like Wycombs takes a little bit of a tighter line. He doesn't seem to stick to the traditional racing line, which a lot of drivers don't do in wet conditions, as the rubber gets very, very wet and slippery. But again, these tyres are designed to displace a phenomenal amount of water back up into the air, so that becomes a little bit less of an issue. But again, I'm noticing Wycombs taking a little bit of a different line. Whoops, as he kicks the tail up quite dramatically through the Spoon curve. But he's actually really starting to bear down on the Ferrari ahead of him. So I think we're going to have a battle for the middle two podium positions. But also the top three know all they have to do. I say all they have to do, inverted commas, is finish where they are. And as you all know as a driver, I haven't tried driving a Formula 1 car in the rain. I've tried driving in other series in the rain. It's very, very hard. So they just have to focus on keeping their car on the black stuff. They know they just have to finish where they are to secure their top 3. So they may well just stick to the positions they're in. But let's face it, in the heat of the moment, the racing mist, it's not really red mist, but racing mist takes over. That racing instinct starts to push you forward. If you have an opportunity, they will take it. And I think this is what Wycombs is going to do. He doesn't have pressure from behind from Ramdrop, although, let's face it, he's not far behind. He's doing a stellar job in the rain here at Suzuka. So if, for instance, Wycombs and Ollie do collide and go off, Ramdrop is going to be laughing himself all the way to the bank with a big old haul of points. But I reckon Wycombs is going to start to really pile on the pressure to that Ferrari very, very soon.
Yeah, he is getting closer and closer, and it's not going to be easy for him whatsoever. No doubt about that. I mean, Olli Pakala alone is going to be difficult to overtake, but overtaking Olli Pakala at Suzuka in the rain, no less, is got to be one of the bigger challenges as Wycombs goes very wide at the entrance to Spoon there. I'm not sure if that's going to be a track limits warning for him or anything, but great shot of the spray coming off of these 2017 cars as they head out of Spoon and down the run towards 130R, and Wycombs is definitely seeming closer and closer as they go through 130R in excess of 180 miles per hour in the wet, no less. Incredible stuff from these cars and drivers as they come to the end of lap 7 now, rapidly approaching 1/3 distance of this 27-lap race. And it's looking like Graham Carroll is now starting to make a breakaway. Let me switch on board with Olli Pakala. Yeah, now 1.9 seconds. 1.3 was the gap not that many laps ago, is now 1.9 seconds. So Olli Pakala slowly but surely falling off the back of Graham Carroll now. And
you are absolutely spot on. Wycombs did get himself a track limits warning for that incident at Spoon. Now, the track limits are catching quite a few people out, which is understandable in the rain, let's be quite frank. Wycombs got that warning. Max AFC actually has himself a penalty, as does Johnny John. Michael actually ended up with a stop-go penalty for gaining a position whilst corner cutting. Again, it's not really a surprise in these horrific conditions. It's so easy to skew off, and momentum could just carry you through whilst the pack is still very, very close. Ryko Gordon got himself a stop-go penalty for speeding in the pit, so Ryko Gordon's already been in the pit lane. So he must have picked up damage, and I certainly didn't spot it. And it is a smattering of warnings across the board there otherwise. So, yeah, even the best are really struggling with these conditions, as you imagine. But we are likely to see Wycombs just falling a bit away from that Ferrari now. So is Olli Pakala beginning to pick up the pace, I wonder? It's 2 seconds, so he's actually fallen slightly further away from the Mercedes, but he has definitely broken away from the McLaren. So Graham certainly is getting the hammer down. He's opened up 3.2 seconds between himself and Wycombs now. Now 1.8 between himself and Ollie, so on Olli Pakala. So 1.6, so now the Ferrari's beginning to get his toe down. Is he starting to push on? I mean, I'm not entirely sure from a driver's standpoint how long these wet tyres will last for. Justin?
That's a tough one. I know historically the wet weather tires will often do half of a 50% race. So assuming the conditions stay this way, I think it's very likely we'll see drivers maybe coming into the pits at the end of lap 13, maybe, because of course they're heavy with fuel right now, which means they're going to be burning up those tires ever so slightly faster than they would in the second half of the race. So certainly if I were a driver, I would be contemplating pitting at the end of lap 13, doing a 13-lap stint on this set of full wets, and then going on to another set of full wets for the final 14 laps of the race. But again, the weather might change. Certainly these drivers will be getting weather updates from their race engineers as well, and just hearing, the rain is going to be staying like this for 10 minutes, or it might be, the rain's going to get lighter in 5 minutes, those sorts of things that we're not privy to, unfortunately. So we don't know exactly what's going to happen, but I do know those full wets can handle quite a bit. But, this is Suzuka, which can be pretty punishing.
Absolutely. Whilst you were explaining that, I've actually taken a look further down the field. We've got a three-way battle here. It is with Max AFC, Kalon, and Michael X99. Now, the Ferrari and the Renault were side by side through the hairpin, which is pretty brave in these conditions. Oh my goodness me, that's a big old slide for Michael X99 in the Ferrari. because he's coming through Spoon. That's going to lose him a little bit of pace. It looks like he's got the pace on Kalon. Oh, there we go. There's some further proof that Graham's got his foot down with breaking the 1:45 time. So yeah, there is racing to be found further down the field. Whoa! And there's a commentator's curse again. But Michael definitely has had the pace on that Renault, but just not been able to utilise it. But again, that is the characteristics of this circuit. But also of the conditions, as we mentioned, it's very difficult to overtake here, and the weather can often make it more difficult to get the power down, etc., causing the car to become very, very twitchy. So the conditions are very difficult to drive, but it also will force a mistake to happen more often than you normally would see. So still plenty of time. Whoops, as just seen, I think it was Fizzy that was going a little bit too wide there at the first turn. Yes, it was. So he's down in 11th. This condition's not suiting him at all. Klawutski in 12th in the Sauber. Fehler is in the pits, so that's a little bit earlier than previously thought. I'm assuming then. I'm just going to watch him to see if he's replacing any parts. It could be why he's struggling a bit. Yep, that's a front wing change. So he's had an argument with something or someone. So that's Fehler's day pretty much done. Raiko Gordon down in 14th. And that is all of our runners at the moment.
Yep, yeah, that's everyone we've got, down to just 14 drivers.
Oh, we've just lost Michael X99. So that the Ferrari I was just seeing has retired.
Oh, that is very unfortunate. Yep, and there he is getting overtaken by Johnny John in the Renault.
And we've just lost Klawutski as well. So that's the Sauber that's gone. So at this rate, almost everyone's going to get points.
Good point. No pun intended there. But yeah,
I did wonder whether you did that on purpose.
It's pretty much as it was at the front. It's been plus or minus a few tenths. Around 1.5 to 2 seconds gap between the Ferrari and the Mercedes up at the tip of the spear. And it is as it was. Let's switch over to Wycom's. Oh, and he's definitely lost ground to the Ferrari. So it looks like he's going to settle in and maybe. He could be saving his tires. It wouldn't be the first time that we've seen Wycom's make a charge at the end of the race. So we could potentially see some more coming from him later on. Surprisingly, he has a lot of fuel as well. I would have imagined that a lot of these drivers would have under-fueled their cars in these conditions. Yellow flag as Wycom's was heading into the hairpin.
Oh, it's a Sauber that's in the hole.
Oh, it's Klawutski. Oh, okay.
That's...
At least it's not on the racing line, so the drivers don't have to get too creative as far as getting by that Sauber. But yeah, that's unfortunate for Klawutski.
Yeah.
Of course.
I mean that would have been safety car, but we've been advised not to run the safety car at the moment in these service, so that's why we haven't had a safety car come out for that car to be cleared away. So that wreckage, I think, is probably going to sit there for the rest of the race. So again, these drivers are going to have to bear that in mind. But yeah, you'd have to really overcook the throttle on the exit of Spoon the hairpin rather to catch that wreckage, which is probably exactly what Klawutski did to put his car there in the first place.
Yeah, one would assume. Of course, the low-speed corners where you're just getting... these cars have an incredible amount of power, and despite the ridiculous size of the rear tires, it's just not quite enough to handle all of that power, especially in the lower gears and coming out of lower speed corners as well. Nick Mito has lost a lot of time to Ramdrop. Ramdrop's already out of turn 2 as Nick Mito's just starting lap 12. So a big gap between 4th and 5th has developed. 8.5 seconds to the leader is Ramdrop, 22.5 seconds. So there's a 14 second
seconds
gap. Yeah, these are bigger gaps than we saw at the ends of the races in China and Bahrain. So already these conditions proving to really be mixing things up and really changing things around, because we did not see anything like this in the previous 2 races.
We've actually had, fun fact, we've actually had more retirements this race than we have had in our previous 2 races combined.
Wow, now that's a statistic.
Yeah, we had 2 retirements last time and 1. Well, 2 if you include Enzo Benito's failure to start. And we've had, I believe, 4 retirements from this race. So there you go. That just shows how the weather really does mix up the pack, or mix up how people are able to perform in conditions like this.
There's a battle for 7th going on right now. If you want to take a peek at that, Westy is looking very punchy on the back of that Renault of Johnny John right now,
with Fizzy right in tow. So with retirements, that's actually brought Fizzy up. He was 11th last time I looked at him, so he's now up to 9th position. Yes, a great three-way battle there. Renault, Toro Rosso, and Force India. So we'll see how they're able to do. But again, this track, just even in these conditions, don't offer a great deal. Oh, I was just going to say, don't offer a great deal of many overtaking opportunities, as Westy got a little bit too close to that Renault through the spoon corner as they head down to 130R. Let's see if they're able to do anything here. It does look like the clouds are breaking up, but I don't know whether that's going to make a great deal of difference. Oh my goodness me. The Renault's very slow actually through 130R. We're going to see a Senna Prost move here. Not the same outcome rather. No, they all get through that fairly well. My goodness me. Is that Fizzy's coming in, I think? Yes, he is. So exactly as you said, it's the end of, around this halfway mark, we're now going to start seeing pit stops happen. So it's unsurprisingly another set of full wets on that Force India. Obviously, if the weather does change, we might see people trying the Inters, but right now it would be absolutely suicide to try. There's so much standing water out there.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth there. I mean, I'm on board still with Westy. Oh gosh, he's doing his best Max Verstappen impression as he drifts the S curves. He's just about holding on to the back of that Renault up ahead, but no, that's definitely going to give Johnny John a bit of an advantage as they make their way into the Degners now. And Westy is going to have to hold off and wait for another opportunity. It was very opportunistic, of course, at the Casio Triangle, but doing his best. I mean, as we've said, it's not the easiest of circuits to overtake at, and these conditions just making it that much more difficult, as Westy having a hard time navigating that turn 11 hairpin, but does manage to navigate his way around that Sauber, no problem. But it looks like he's going to have to turn his focus back towards just putting in good lap times, as he's lost some time to that Renault up ahead. Oh, that's very wide for the Toro Rosso driver as he makes his way through Spoon, and Johnny John, the back of his car, is stepping out as well. This is getting very sideways for a lot of these drivers.
It could be an indication that the weather conditions are actually getting worse. I commented that the sky looks like it was breaking up a bit, so might have been an indication of better weather conditions to come. But with the amount these cars are sliding around, also these tyres are going to be pretty dead as well. So there's another factor to bear in mind. Let's see if either of these two come in, and they both do. So they actually come in tandem to get rid of those very second-hand full wets. Well, we don't need to see what they're going to go on to. But our leaders have yet to come in, interestingly. Where is Graham Carroll? He is coming around the hairpin at the moment. And that Sauber on the inside, whilst off the racing line, he's still going to put people off. Now, if you're in close proximity with another car, it could just distract you that little bit. Again, that kind of minor distraction is going to be more crucial in conditions like this. Just a little bit of a distraction could make you just put the throttle down a little bit too much, or just make you suddenly panic. It sounds odd considering how long it's been there for, but in the heat of the moment, especially if you're with somebody else, those little distractions you really don't need. So we could that Sauber could yet come into play later on. We simply don't know. Let's see.
It's also causing a yellow flag, which is going to restrict overtaking, of course.
Not really an overtaking spot though when they exit the hairpin, not unless someone really has trouble getting out the hairpin.
And they're coming in.
Are they coming in all? They
are, yes. Red line drivers into the pits. One would assume for another set of full wets. I was going to speculate that potentially they had some info about the weather that was causing them to stay out potentially. But it looks like a good stop for Mercedes, but an even better stop for Ferrari as Olli Pakala is almost nose to tail with our current championship leader Graham Carroll as they make their way out of the pits to start lap 15, just past the halfway point in this race, and there goes the Mercedes and the Ferrari as they head into turn one, and this is about as close as we've seen them since the start of this race.
Yeah, Graham's lead has gone. He will not be pleased about that. Of course, this is not anything he has any input over. I was actually on board with Wycombs when he came in, just as Graham Carroll jumped right across his nose. So it almost looked like a bit of an unsafe release, but I think he might have gotten away with it. But Wycombs has really lost out. He is now 6.2 seconds down from the top two. And Ramdrop also came in at the same time because he's still Oh no, that wasn't Ramdrop I saw in the background. I beg your pardon. He's actually.
No, I believe.
Oh no,
Ram
yes
did
it is.
come in.
Yes,
yeah,
he did.
But
I
he's
beg your
still
pardon.
fourth. Yeah.
Yeah, 8.6. I beg your sorry. The timing screen hadn't quite updated. It was showing 29 seconds down. So the
Same.
top. Yeah. So the top 4 all did come in exactly as you called, Justin, at the end of 13. But yeah, we have a definite race on our hands now with the Ferrari.
Oh, the Sauber's gone. And the Sauber has been removed from the circuit, thankfully, so the drivers don't have to worry about yellow flags or Saubers parked on the side of the circuit or anything like that. So they can resume focusing on the racing at hand. As I'm on board with Ramdrop right now, we maybe have been focusing on him a little bit less than the top 3. He can just about see Wycom's off in the distance as they're on this run down towards 130R. And let's go on board with him. Look at this incredible stuff. 176 miles an hour minimum apex speed in these atrocious conditions as well is truly incredible stuff. Makes his way through the Casio Triangle, and of course now the difficult process of getting the power down in these cars as they come out of that triangle or out of that chicane and down the hill. And Ramdrop with the fastest lap of the race, actually, with a 144.4. So maybe he's been saving fuel for later on. I'm not entirely sure. He's missed his apex ever so slightly at turn 2 there. But it is looking pretty good for him with Wycombs, again, not that far up ahead. But really, we're going to need to see, if we want to see any sort of shakeup in the championship, then we're going to need something to happen to the guys at the top, in the front. Either Ollie or Graham. One of the red line drivers is going to have to have something happen to him if we want to see any sort of shakeup in the championship standings. But based on how they're driving so far, based on the first half of this race anyway, that's a very aggressive inside line for Ramdrop. And it looks like Wycombs has maybe closed up to some traffic. Yeah, it looks like that's Michael X99's Ferrari that is in his way ever so slightly. But he does manage to get his way through there. And no problems for Wycombs, but it's looking like this might be the weather that we have until the end of the race.
It is certainly looking that way, and again we're seeing the Mercedes just ever so slightly creep away from that Ferrari. So Ollie Packler, as amazing as he is, just does not seem to have an answer for that ever-charging red line veteran of Graham Carroll. So interesting that Ollie's pit light has remained on whilst he's been out, but he hasn't obviously come back into the pits again. But they are really pulling away from Wycombs in that McLaren as Graham Carroll smashes through the 144 time with a 143.8. Absolutely stunning in these conditions. As they now come through the first turn, Wycombs in that third position, 6 seconds down from the lead, but he's again, while slipping back from the lead too, he has done his best to maintain or to keep that gap as small as he can. Ramdrop, as we mentioned before, doing a sterling job there in fourth position, holding on to the fastest lap for a while. Nick Mido in fifth position in the Red Bull. He must have come in at the same time as the lead four, as he is about 28.5 seconds down. Max AFC in the Sauber in sixth. Finds himself a little bit on his own. Kalon about 2 seconds down from him in seventh position. Fizzy in eighth now. He's now got Johnny John behind him, so he's made that overtake post pit stop. And sadly, I didn't get to see that one.
Nor did I.
Yeah, Westy is around there somewhere. The camera was not quite looking at him. There he is, and Toro Rosso in 10th position, hanging on to that last points-paying position. Riker Gordon in 11th. He's just coming across the start-finish line. Failer in 12th. He's coming into the pits. I think he's already been in once, so his race is just absolutely disintegrated. And Michael X99 is still running, but he is ghosted. So we have 12 runners remaining in this race.
Yeah, and I was actually, while you were going up and down the field, I took a quick look over at Rico Gordon. I wanted to see what was going on a little bit further down, and I caught him really, really struggling at Spoon. Went right off the circuit. I hope he didn't get penalized for that. 143.7. Graham Carroll continuing to get faster and faster as this race progresses and as that fuel burns off in his Mercedes F1 car. And no surprise that... the championship leader is, it turns out, extremely quick.
Yeah, who'd have thought? But yeah, I mean, so 3 out of 3 races are going to be on the podium at this rate for Graham Carroll, of course. with this being the second winner. If the positions stay as they are, they still have 10 laps to do, or just under. So it could still, as the tyres wear out for the second time, it could still happen that a mistake happens. We will see as Graham Carroll then starts to catch up with, that is the other McLaren, so that'll be Failer that is pulled out of the way, and very wisely so, very nicely done as they come through the hairpin once again. Oslo is now 1.3, nearly 1.4 down from the Mercedes, so he again has not got an answer for the incredible pace. Again, from the red line pairing here that have just absolutely put moves on everybody. Wycombe's now the best of the rest, 7 seconds down from Graham Carroll. We know how good Wycombe's is. He's in the top split for F1 2017, the upcoming season, which starts on Sunday here at AOR. He's in the top split and one of the fastest drivers there, and he has no answer for the two ahead of him. So that just goes to show, I mean, we all know how good Wycombe's is, but it just goes to show how incredible Oslo and Graham from Medline are.
Yeah, truly incredible stuff. Graham Carroll again sets fastest lap of the race, 1:43.6. He is now down to. Incredible stuff, just showing why he is the championship leader by 13 points. The only driver in the PC split to finish on the podium in both of the races so far. Nobody else has had that kind of consistency, and that is why he is the leader of the championship. No surprise there. It is fairly close still in the top four, just 12 seconds separating them, but then Nick Mito down in 5th position in the Red Bull, a shocking 31 seconds off the rest off the leader, so he is pretty far down. So again, it's going to take something catastrophic happening up at the front in order to bring these guys that are further down up into the mix and in podium contention, never mind race win contention. And let's actually go on board with the nose of Nick Mito as he makes his way through the legendary S section at Suzuka, with the left and right, then left and right, then the left up the Dunlop curve as he climbs the hill on his way towards the two Degners in these, again, absolutely horrible conditions. Gets it all slowed down to about 120 miles an hour for the first Degner, and right on down to 66 miles an hour for the second Degner. Powers his way underneath the tunnel and into the hairpin, and showing just how difficult it can be in these conditions, and staying very clear of the curbing, I have to point out, which I've seen other drivers doing. Wycombe's, as you pointed out, Chris, earlier in the broadcast, Wycombe's as well, really trying to stay away from the curbing, which is completely understandable, as Nick Mito now making his way into the spoon curve before he's going to start heading onto the very long straight, of course. And let's see if we can find out what's going on up at the front. 1.1 seconds is the gap. So at this rate, I have to speculate whether or not Ollie Pakula is actually interested in winning this race. It wouldn't really do anything for him. I don't think it's going to give him any sort of preferential treatment in the semifinals in London when that starts happening. But so he might just be taking it. He might just be playing it safe. Of course, he's going to be very aware of the 6-second gap that he has to Wycombe's behind. So I have to wonder if he's just going to play it safe here and just settle for that second place.
It could be, but also you've got to think that racers are racers. That they will still want to just have that chance. If there's a mistake that happens up front, they need to be in that position to capitalise on it. And also, if Graham makes a mistake, then again Ollie is right there to be able to keep that pressure on. Graham will know he's there, and every now and then Ollie will do something just to remind Graham that he's there. A quick jink out to put the Ferrari in the Mercedes mirrors, despite the fact that it's horrible conditions. They'll still with that little bit of mind game going on. Obviously, both of them being from the same league as well. This rivalry no doubt has lasted for quite some time. Actually, on the shot that I can see, we've got the shot I just had there on Ollie Pakula's car was the side pod. I actually saw his delta. He was 0.044 down and then became 1.5 tenths up. So again, consistency is just proving key, exactly as you said before. And there's another fastest lap from Graham Carroll. Goodness me, anything you can do, Ollie Pakula, I can do better, is this statement that Graham Carroll's just given there. He's trying to do a Senna, trying to break the fastest lap 18 times in the same race or something like that. But yeah, so the rivalry is clearly there between these two drivers, and Ollie will want an opportunity. He will take an opportunity to try and get one over Graham. Exactly as you say, he won't do anything as far as the championship is concerned. If anything, if they come together, it'll damage the championship perspective. But there is that deep instinct every racer has to want to have that opportunity and to try and keep their eyes on that prize. If he wanted to settle for second, he'd have backed off by now. He still wants to keep that pressure on. He wants that top spot on the podium. But then again, so does Graham, and Graham knows he's clearly got the pace to keep Ollie Packler at bay. But he'll equally know how easy it is to make a mistake, especially whilst the cars are going to get lighter and quicker, the tyres are going to die by the end of the race. So it could still happen. It could still kick off before the checker flag falls.
Yep, it does look like these are going to be the conditions that we continue racing with for the remainder of this Japanese Grand Prix as we rapidly approach the end of lap 21. Just 6 laps remaining in the final round of this F1 eSports event with Apex Online Racing. And as we mentioned before, Team Redline with the 1-2 as it stands at the moment. And this was, of course, the finish that we saw at the end of Bahrain last week as well. We saw Graham Carroll leading Ollie Pakala home. And a bigger gap we saw there. And, okay. And Ollie Pakala mixes it up a little. This time, Ollie picks up the fastest lap of the race. So he is clearly doing his absolute best in order to close in on that Mercedes. And hopefully we'll still get a little bit more action between the two of them. Let's look a little bit further back and see what's going on a little bit further down the field. Max AFC in the Sauber holding on to that 6th place position. He's not too far behind Nick Mito. Yeah, it's only about a 7-second gap or so, and with 6 laps remaining in this race. So certainly that is not all done and dusted. Fizzy, however, is currently leading a group of cars in 7th position. He's got Kalon just behind him, Johnny John and the other Renault just behind Kalon as they make their way through the Casio Triangle. And then, of course, it is Westy just behind them as well. So a nice 4-way battle here for 7th position is developing. Fizzy appears to be breaking away a little bit. We may see a move for 8th position here. Let's go on board with Johnny John. No, he's not going to be close enough at the end of the start-finish straight in order to make a move on his quote-unquote teammate. Oh, as Kalon, though, goes very, very wide at the exit of Turn 2. That is going to allow Johnny John to close up that gap as they come into the S section. But, of course, now he's going to be picking up all sorts of dirty air coming off of that Renault ahead of him. And Fizzy continues to break away, actually, from that pack. So I guess a commentator blessed Fizzy. Is that a thing?
It is now.
But yeah, the Renaults, yeah, it is now. But the Renaults, I think now are a bit more focused on themselves as Fizzy really pulling away into the distance. Oh, Johnny John makes a late lunge up the inside of the second Degner. Slight contact between the two Renaults. He leaves him just enough space. He'll get the inside line for this slight right, but then he'll have to go around the outside. No, he goes a bit deep. He's into the standing water there. His teammate comes back at him. Kalon with the inside line. He'll have to go around the outside now of turn 12. Of course, flat out through here. Can he keep the car on the right-hand side? Yes, he can, just about. Looks like the Renault is still just about alongside him. No, he gets ahead of him, breaks nice and early, finds his apex for Spoon, and is up into 8th position. So maybe Fizzy isn't as safe as he thought he was as the Renaults swap their way around. And now Johnny John, with just under 5 laps remaining, could pick up a couple more points off of Fizzy.
It's certainly doable. Kalon would not be happy about that. There was a stellar move into the second Degner for Johnny John there on Kalon. That was something I don't think Kalon would have thought coming. And then there was a return knock from Kalon on that Renault. Whoa! As the tail of that Renault of Kalon just completely lets go on the exit of the Casio Triangle. That's going to give Westy a great run on him into the turn 1. No, Westy opts to not try that one, probably wise. And Kalon again, he's not liking these conditions. Westy, I thought, was going to have a crack at him at turn 2, but decided not to. As they now come through the S's, he's not going to be able to do anything there unless Kalon flies off the road, which is, of course, doable. We'll be able to see if Johnny John has the extra pace he needs to catch up to the Pink Panther ahead of him. So we're great It's good to see that despite the fact that these guys are obviously not fighting for that top 3 position now, as Graham Carroll again stamps his authority on that fastest lap. He wants that. He wants the fastest lap. He wants to take that one home. It's good to see that despite the fact that these guys are not at the top of the table, they're not in in contention for the top 3. But again, that racing instinct is still there. They want that good battle. They want to be able to get as many points as they can, despite the fact that they're fighting over 8th and 9th. It's really good to see that. Good to see that fighting spirit still there.
Yeah, I mean, it's for bragging rights, too, as Kalon again goes very wide. That's not the first time we've seen it, and I assume that's not the last time we'll see it either, as the conditions remain the same. Oh my gosh, you can barely see the circuit on board with the Toro Rosso of Westy. But yeah, it is a bit for bragging rights as well. If you can tell someone that you finished in the top 10 of the Apex Online Racing F1 eSports event, that's a 180-mile-an-hour drift from Westy through 130R. I imagine he's going to need a change of underpants after this race. That was quite the moment. But it has actually closed him up to the back of Kalon. No DRS here, so this will appeal to the purists out there that hate the DRS and Urs assistant in 2017. But he wasn't able to get alongside into turn 1. Will Kalon go wide again, though? Yeah, in turn 2. That's the third time. It wasn't as bad this time around. But on laps 23 and 22, we saw Kalon go very wide at the exit of turn 2, and Westy is seeming very impatient now. He is clearly faster than the Renault ahead of him, but I mean, these guys, if I were in and that's a mistake from the Toro Rosso, and all that hard work thrown out the door. But yeah, I mean, if I've even finished in the top 10 of an F1 esports event, certainly I would be very proud of that. So they may not be going to London, but these guys still have their pride, still have bragging rights up for grabs. So we'll see what happens in the closing stages of this race. As once again, Westy getting very, very close to the back of Kalon, and now Johnny John's starting to break away. In fact, let's see what the gap is looking like to Fizzy. Oh, and Fizzy's gone actually. Fizzy, who was so strong at the end of the race in Bahrain. Another strong result here in the closing stages of this very wet Japanese Grand Prix. He's up into P7 and has built quite the gap to Johnny John in P8 as well. So things are looking good for Fizzy. Max AFC still holding on to that 6th place position, is the Sauber driver. Fantastic result for him. And then who is ahead of him? Nick Mido still holding on to that 5th place position. A very quiet race for the Red Bull driver.
He'd be almost forgiven for thinking he was in a time trial event. The fact he hasn't seen any living soul except for the crowd all race long, pretty much, Nick Mido. But I'm sure he'll be thankful to bring some points home. That'll actually be his one and only point scoring race of the 3 that we've had in this series. So it's a good way for him to round out his chances, as we have 3 laps to go before this E-Series qualifying event is done, and we send our 3 top scorers off to London. Then as Graham Carroll again kicks the tail out of that car to start lap 26, the penultimate round. He has penultimate lap rather. He has got a 2.3 second cushion to himself and Ollie Pakula, so he'll be wanting to just bring that car home on very tired tyres. Yes, I said it. And Wycombe's ends 13 seconds down, so he's just settling in. Well, I'm sure he settled in a while ago, as he has a ghosted Ferrari ahead of him. Round drop. He's done what he can to stay in contention with the top 3, but he just hasn't had an answer. But a fair effort from him nonetheless to secure his 4th place, just shy of that important top 3. Nick Mido, as we mentioned before, has been in no man's land all race long. Max AFC in the Sauber continues to press on in 6th position. Fizzy in the Pink Panther, sterling effort from him as well. Johnny John, as we saw, with that great overtaking manoeuvre on Kalon earlier on for that 8th position. Kalon still has Westy for company in 9th and 10th respectively as they come through the Casio Triangle. Riker Gordon there in 11th position in the Red Bull. I think, I'm just going to double check this. I think it was Riker. Oh no, beg your pardon. Riker Gordon has been through the pits 4 times, strangely.
Wow.
But that's not the worst one. The worst one is failure on 6 occasions to do the bits. So
holy cow!
I assume Failer had a few penalties to serve there, which again I can understand. Failer again is one of our top split drivers here in AOR, and these conditions probably, it's exactly as I mentioned earlier. He may not have practiced the full wet. He could be hoping for a dry setup. Graham Carroll again, he's close to that 142, as that must be him on the final lap then.
Yep. Yeah, Graham Carroll and Ollie Pakula, both the red line drivers, have finished the penultimate lap. They're on to the final lap. White flag is out, of course, and they're just making their way through Sector 1. And unfortunately for Ollie Pakula, Graham Carroll just seems faster and faster as this race goes on. I'm not sure what kind of magic wet weather tires he's got, but it seems to be working out very well for him as he set another fastest lap of the race on the penultimate lap. And it seems that he is getting along well with these conditions, possibly due to the fact that he is British. Or
well, he's Scottish as well. So
yeah.
So
I couldn't get as specific because I'm not as familiar with the geography. But yeah, he's obviously very comfortable with rain, given where he is from. Whereas Ollie Pakula may be a little bit more comfortable with the snow. Haven't had any snow races in F1 to my knowledge. Maybe somebody out there can fact check me on that one. See if there's been any snow races.
Not that I've ever witnessed as well. Graham Carroll goes a little bit wide there, coming through the spoon curve. But again,
Ollie Pakula too, as well, running a little bit wide through spoon.
So yeah, I mean the tyres have had it by now, but again they know that they've not got far to go. Graham Carroll has just been untouchable. No one has been on his pace. A few other holders of the fastest lap, but within 1 or 2 laps of that happening, Graham Carroll has reasserted his authority through the last turns of the Casio Triangle. Your winner here in Suzuka and winner of this 3-race championship is, of course, the Mercedes of Graham Carroll, very closely followed by the Ferrari. Great effort by our red line pair, Graham Carroll and Ollie Pakula. Wycombe's then bringing his McLaren home just ahead. He's actually slowed down, whether he's run out of fuel or not. He knows where the line is. He comes across the line in third. Wycombe's secures his position in London as well. Ram drop, great effort for you to close in towards the end, but it is 4th position for you, sir. Nick Mido in the Red Bull, screaming down towards the Casio Triangle with his front wheels locked. He will have to remind himself what everybody else looks like, because he pretty much hasn't seen anybody for the 3/4 of the race. Nick Mido comes along the line in 5th position. Max AFC jumps over in 6th, has a big old wheel to himself. Why not? Fizzy, the Lord Fizzy, heads down towards the Casio Triangle himself. He's got no one around him. Everyone's fuel light is flashing by this stage. I don't think anybody ran out of fuel this time around. I did wonder whether anybody would, but no one around Fizzy. He comes across the line in 7th position. Johnny John leads a 3-car train of himself, Kalon and Westy. Westy wasn't able to beat the Renault. Oh, Kalon goes very wide in that last turn, just giving a slight hope to Westy in the Toro Rosso, but was not to be. And Rico Gordon, he'll come across the line a lap down. He's doing a donut. Why not? He hasn't finished the race, but
it may get him disqualified, but at least he's going to put on a little show for us. So.
Why not?
And I think anybody that saw the 2013 Formula One season will be very familiar with seeing a Red Bull doing donuts. So this kind of feels like nostalgic as Rico Gordon crosses the line
sideways,
kind of. He's going to reverse across the line, but
okay.
That is going to do it for the eSports qualifiers. And, of course, as we mentioned, your top 3 are going to be Graham Carroll. On the PC side, your top 3 are going to be Graham Carroll, Ollie Pakula, and Wycombs, a.k.a. Chris. He is the only one of the 3 that maybe people don't know by name, but rather more by username. And there is
reputation.
Your... Yeah, absolutely. A lot of people know Wycombs. They just may not know him as Chris. But, yeah, there is your top 3. Again, Graham Carroll picking up the win in his Mercedes. That's 2 wins out of 3. Wins 2 of the 3 races and finishes in 2nd position for the other one. Just an absolutely dominant result for him. Ollie Pakula picking up 2 podiums and a 4th place finish, which is going to be enough for 2nd in the point standings. Wycombs with a win and a podium But unfortunately, with his results in Bahrain, that is not going to be enough for him to
look at
overhaul
the penalties. Look at all the penalties. That it was actually our top 3 with the only ones not to have a penalty. Again, that just shows the quality of the races that we've had. Everyone else succumbing to the wet conditions that we've had here. So let's see if we can grab hold of our top 3. They're not in Discord. So,
they're not yet. We'll give them a little bit of time. But yeah, so those are your top 3. As we mentioned, Graham Carroll going to be going to London. Short trip for him. Ollie Pakula heading to London. A slightly longer trip for him. And Wycombs as well going to be going to London. Slightly longer trip for him. As you mentioned, Graham Drop does secure that fourth place position in the championship with a 4th place. So again, the top 4 in the position that they finished in the championship in that race. So Graham Carroll leading them home. In the end, Rico Gordon a lap down. Westy, 1 minute and 26 seconds off of Graham Carroll, which is, again, much, much bigger gaps than we saw in the previous races. You know, at the end of the Bahrain Grand Prix, I want to say there was like a 45-second gap from first all the way down to last. So let's go ahead and let's start with Wycombs, because I do see Ollie and Wycombs are both ready for interviews. So
they are.
Let's go ahead and start with Wycombs if we can, since he finished in 3rd position. Hello, Mr. Chris. Very good drive there. You did kind of lose touch with the top 2 in that race, but you were one of only 3 people to finish without any sort of penalties or anything. And you are going to London, so I imagine you're pretty excited about that.
Yes, definitely. You just pulled me out. I just wanted to congratulate Ollie and Graham as well.
Yeah, well, you can congratulate them when we pull them in here. But yeah, I was just talking about you scored a win and a podium. Bahrain maybe didn't go the way that you wanted to, but in the end, 2 podiums, one of which being a win. Certainly a solid result for you. So how was that race, though? Was it difficult to keep control of the car? Did you do much wet practice?
Not well. I wasn't able to do much practice at all because I started uni last week and still trying to adapt to new things and stuff like that. But I was just the entire race. I was like, don't crash, just Ollie and Graham, please pull away, because cars were lagging for me as well. Cars were jumping around, so I was like, please pull away. And then I will keep Ram behind me, and then I'm fine. I just wanted to keep Ram behind me. That was basically the target because of the championship, and yeah, I did it.
Well, huge congratulations, sir. I mean, you can head to London knowing that you're a race winner already, which obviously a lot of people will not be able to say. So huge congratulations. I mean, you went up against some of the toughest competition I think we've ever seen in Formula One eSports in general. And you came out in the top 3. So huge congratulations to you, sir. Let's see if we can grab Mr. Ollie Pakula here. Ollie, if you can hear me. So congratulations. You are also going to London, of course. You guys actually finished all in the top 4 finished in the position that they were in the championship. So I would have appreciated if you guys had mixed it up a little bit more. But huge congratulations to you, Ollie. How are you feeling about going to London? Oh, no. I can't hear you.
We can't hear you, unfortunately, Ollie. We can see you're transmitting, but we got nothing this side.
The lights are on, but nobody's home.
Indeed, the voice is on, but no one is heard. No, I'm afraid we still can't hear you, Mr. Ollie. Well, shall we grab Graham then whilst Ollie tries and beats his microphone into life?
We might as well get the 3. We might as well get the 3 people going to London here all at the same time. So, Graham, huge congratulations. Obviously, you were on the podium every single one of those races with 2 wins out of 3, and only 2nd position in the other one. But, of course, congrats to you. You're going to be heading to London. How are you feeling about that?
Yeah, awesome. Really chuffed to get the win, and didn't do any practice in the rain either around Suzuka, so it was a bit of a shock to start off in the rain, but awesome fun, and yeah, really enjoyed it, and looking forward to London even more, that all of my teammates coming along with me, so it's awesome.
Well, yeah, like I said, very well driven all throughout this series, actually. You've done an incredible job, obviously. Well-deserved. To pick up that win here today, and also, of course, the win in Bahrain in that 2nd place in China as well. So I mean, you mentioned that you hadn't really done any practice. I mean, were you doing anything different in that race? Were you short shifting just the general wet weather condition sort of stuff?
Again, I didn't know that the sort of Wycombs, if he knew the wee trick of the trade in the wet, could they do the one stop? Did they have to stop? And again, I've never really done I've done a few 25% races, just fun races with teammates, so I've never done the 50%. So it was all just ifs and buts, but we played the right calls, played it safe, didn't go too long in the first stint. And yeah, as you've seen, sort of second last lap was my quickest lap, and again, we could have probably went really quicker if we wanted to, but you make one mistake and you might not go to London, so it was all just sort of tippy-toeing around for first lap, and yeah, it was really good fun, really enjoyed it, and yeah, I'd just like to say a big thanks to Fnatic as well, sponsors of the team, Redline, so yeah, London should be awesome.
Yep, we're all looking forward to it, of course. If for anybody that doesn't know, the official Formula One Twitter account did tweet out what the stage is going to look like, which is pretty exciting looking. So nice. I am definitely looking forward to that one. I believe Ollie is back with us, and hopefully with a working mic now. How are you feeling after that race, Ollie?
Oh, good. Thank you.
Yeah, we can definitely hear you now. So what about you? Wycombs and Graham, they really didn't do much wet weather practice. Did you do any wet weather practice ahead of this race?
No. Not at all.
So you just went into it just with the kind of traditional wet weather tactics in mind. What about the strategy? Were you planning on the one stop when you saw the weather?
Yeah, I think I knew plan was to check out the tire deck, and actually I was slamming too hard on the rears at the first half of the first stint, and yeah, tire deck was way too high, so I was a bit of afraid to go into two stop, but then managed to hold on, and yeah, the strategy felt quite straightforward, but I was surprised we had just a little bit difference in the setup with Graham, and he managed to pull out just a little bit, so yeah, but still quite happy, without much of a practice. So nice to go to London.
Yep, yeah, and for my own curiosity, this is for my own thing. How hard were you pushing behind Graham? Because obviously, with that second place finish, you're safe. You're going to London, no problems there. I mean, were you pushing hard to catch Graham, or were you happy with that second place?
Well, I think like Graham said, we played safe, but I think it was mid second stint when we started talking in TeamSpeak that it was kind of like a hot lap challenge. So.
It did go that way.
Yeah. But yeah, I obviously tried my best, but yeah, Graham was just fast enough and got away. So.
Well, you've definitely earned it. 2 second places and a fourth place finish is going to be plenty. Congratulations to all three of you guys that are moving on. I mean, I think it's obvious, but we are going to be rooting for you three, with you guys being on the PC platform, of course. So you guys will be representing the PC side of gaming, and we'll of course be rooting for all three of you. So best of luck, of course, in the semifinals in London. We'll be cheering for all of you guys, but that is going to do it for the Apex Online Racing F1 eSports qualifiers. After 3 incredible races, we have these 3 gentlemen that'll be moving on to London. It is Graham Carroll, Ollie Pakala, and Chris Wycombs as well. King-Kodiak, any closing comments from you?
What an amazing series we've had. Just want to thank Codemasters and the representatives from Formula One for making this event happen and for allowing us here at Apex Online Racing to bring you the amazing races that we've seen. Thank you to all of our drivers. Congratulations to the top 3 once again for showing how it's done, quite frankly, and for representing us in London on the 10th of October. But a great effort from all of our drivers that have taken part, no matter where you fell in the standings. It's amazing to be part of a budding esports series, particularly with we all share a love for Formula One. So it's great to be part of that, and we hope to be part of it again in the future.
Yep, could not have said it better myself. So again, thank you to Codemasters for creating these video games, creating this esports series, helping this whole community come together for something really, really special like this. And hopefully, fingers crossed, this will be a regular thing year after year, because personally, I can't wait for 2018. I would love to do all of this over again. So for Chris, King-Kodiak, and myself, Fake Ghost Pirate Justin, and for Apex Online Racing and the F1 Esports Series, thank you everybody for watching, and we will see you in London.
Thanks, guys.
Well done.
Woohoo!
Yeah, congrats as well, Wycombs. Didn't get the chance to see it.
Yeah, grats.
Thank you.
Yeah, you guys are going to be meeting each other pretty soon, so yeah, you got to be friendly.
Are you guys